Next is Endgame Itemization Adjustments. Disclaimer, everything seen on this preview server Lamannia is not final and subject to change or removal before live release. With Update 50, we are making some adjustments to current power creep within DDO's Endgame, focusing specifically on the power level of items at level cap. These adjustments will change how you approach gearing and will encompass both adjustments to player power in addition to content difficulty. We want to go into more detail about why we are doing this and what it means, and we look forward to hearing from you after checking things out on Lamannia. Background information. We have steadily increased the amount of power available in itemization in order to provide a sense of progression as our endgame has matured. This strategy has resulted in 2 long-term changes, both of which we are here to address. Challenge 1, item power level increases over time as we release new content, and we progress beyond the item power level of older content at the same challenge level. Challenge 2, as we follow along the system of progression, we in turn increase the difficulty of content provide challenge. This leads to a situation where content meant to be played at a certain character level ends up with a wide range of difficulty. With those 2 challenges in mind, we are aiming to equalize and reduce the power level of items found in endgame content and adjust the power level of monsters at endgame to match. Solution Part 1, Itemization. In summary, named items found within legendary content will be adjusted and normalized to values appropriate to their minimum level. This means that an item found within Ravenloft will match the power level of an item found within Sharn or Feywild or any of our other current legendary content. This adjustment will pull the item values to more reasonable levels across the board, resulting in a streamlined curve that extends upward from 1 to 30 with fewer jumps and tracks with both randomly generated loot and Kenneth crafted loot. This will not affect anything other than the named items found within legendary content and Kenneth crafted loot that uses the minimum level 31 to 34 shards, random loot augments, named or otherwise. Items found within events, or anything else other than named items found within legendary content and Kenneth crafted loot that use the minimum level 31 to 34 shards will be changing. Items will be adjusted in place without any necessary intervention on the player's part to prevent the situation where legacy versions of the items are more powerful than newly found versions. Can we please increase the maximum level of Kenneth crafting to, I don't know, say 450? So we can actually craft that high level unbound stuff without having ridiculously cost impossible scenarios. /end rant. These items will continue to drop in the same place they currently do at the same drop rates. Items with crafted components, such as Slaver's Crafting, will have their crafted components adjusted, just like the statically set effects found on non-crafted gear. Set bonuses at endgame will have their numerical power adjusted to appropriate values to match our new goals for player power sourced from itemization at endgame. The plus weapon bonus from Keen has been adjusted to instead provide complete fortification bypass on a natural 20. Note, this fortification bypass isn't yet working in this preview. Raid items and minor artifacts will retain their proportional power boost to other items at the same level, and therefore will remain a step stronger than other items at the same level. What this means is that items you find at endgame will be lower in item power than they were before, but are now evenly scaled across content packs. This means that an item found in Feywild will be equally as strong as an item found within Sharn or Ravenloft, or the Dragonblood Prophecy, or any other legendary content featuring level 29 items. To provide some concrete context, this is where the numbers will likely end up at the current level cap. Also note that raid items and artifacts will be a few steps higher than what's shown here as well. Main stat, let's see. Plus 13 is going to be the highest. Wow. Okay. Across the board, level 28. Your main stats going to be plus 12, 29, 30, plus 13. PRR is being adjusted down to 32 to 34 for level 28 to 30. Spell power 139 to 146 for 28 to 30. Spell crit 20% to 21% for 28 to 30. Not a big difference between level 28 gear and level 29 30 gear. Interesting. DC 5, 5, and 6 for 28, 29, 30. DC, and that was single DC. DC all 4, 4, and 4. Double strike 14, 15, and 15. Interesting. Don't panic. Solution part 2, monster power. We have been increasing the power level of monsters found at the level cap. As the power level of items increased over time, and since we are adjusting these items downward, we will be adjusting monsters downward to match. So we're just, the whole game is being scaled down. So don't panic. It's just numbers. The most notable change with this system is the removal of the legendary tier system as it relates to monsters. A monster at endgame will ideally be just as difficult to no matter which dungeon it is found in. The removal of the legendary tier system will represent a significant reduction in the offensive and defensive statistics of monsters found at the level cap, which means that monsters will be much weaker than they were before. We are also removing the epic and hard saves boost found on all monsters across our epic content. Given that each monster in our game has different stats and therefore a different starting point, it is hard for us to tell you exactly where each number will end up. But we can give out some comparisons to help demonstrate how dramatic this change will be. For example, monsters across all of epics will have 6 fewer saving throws, and monsters at endgame specifically will instead have 16 fewer saves. This also does not include our current planned removal of epic resilience, which will remove an additional 6 saving throws for a total of reduction of 22. Monsters will not just be losing saving throws. The legendary tier 2 buff corresponded to 150% fortification bypass, 60 attack bonus, and 10 spell penetration, as well as a whole host of other offensive and defensive buffs designed to make them hit harder and take more hits. We hope that our monster rescaling ends up making content feel more realistic and more accessible, and are able to do more adjustments if necessary. I'm reading between the lines here, but I think this is part of the whole, like, wanting to make the end game more accessible to newer players instead of, you know, they're feeling like there's such a difference between new and veteran players. I think that's part of the strategy here. In any event, short and long-term benefits. We are compelled to make these adjustments for a large number of reasons, and we want to provide a few of the reasons today. Content pack parity. This change will put all of the content packs at endgame on the same item level scaling, which means that gear found within those content packs will be equally valuable numerically. This means that a large number of items that had previously been crunched out of viability are now able to be worked into gear sets without fear that you are settling for a subpar option. You know, well, in doing that, they're making older legendary quest packs more valuable again. Caneth crafting viability. This change will mean that if you have missing parts of your gear set, Caneth crafting is now a more appealing way to fill those gaps. Similar to its benefits at lower levels, it also means that we can dedicate more time to improving Caneth crafting in the future, as its viability doesn't fall off as we approach endgame. We were just talking about that recently, how Caneth crafting was still a great gap filler while leveling, but by the time you reach endgame, not really viable anymore. When they did redo the system 6 years ago, it was endgame viable, but it has just, fallen further and further behind the power curve, but now they are bringing the power curve back down. So that's pretty cool for Kenneth Crafting. That will be that will have some new viability, which means the price and the demand for collectibles that are used in Kenneth Crafting recipes will go up. We like to talk about building wealth in the game, and hey, wealth building opportunities via collectibles coming to a server near you soon. Yeah, I mean, anytime they do a change, it's going to be, people's hair is going to catch on fire. The sky is going to be falling. Doom, doom, doom. We've been talking about that the last couple days. I'm not worried about it at all. Do I smell like I'm worried? I just roll with the punches, and I'm going to have fun no matter what. We can still group together and tell bad jokes. We can still keep each other company during morning coffee and chat. And if you're lamenting the changes, this channel can be like a support group for you. You can always come here and find community. And, we can console each other. Number 3, random loot viability. This change will mean that it is more likely that random loot will end up numerically viable for use at endgame. We don't generally expect established players to use random loot, provided they have spent some time working on gear, but newer or less engaged players will now have more viable sources of power to select from. Just like when they redid the loot system, they had the major overhaul, 6-7 years ago. That, actually about 6 years ago when the game went legendary, it was like that then. There was randomly generated loot that was like the best loot in the game. It was better than raid loot at the time. Randomly, but then, the named loot gradually just kept getting better and better and better and left random loot in the dust. And now random loot at endgame is just a joke. So we're just going back. Like I keep saying over the last couple days, we've seen this movie before. Everything that's old is new again. This is just the ebb and the flow of the game. It is not the end of the world, I promise you. So don't panic. Number 4, augment scaling. This change will mean that our revamped augments and augment system are comparatively more valuable than they were before. Our scaling augments, aka non-named augments, currently stop at level 28 and will now represent a larger chunk of numerical power compared to their usage before this change, avoiding difficulty spikes. This adjustment of monsters at endgame will help us avoid difficulty spikes, which in this case means content where there is no outward indication that it is more difficult than normal, but in reality contains tougher enemies than in other quests at the same level. Our goal is to provide an endgame in which everyone can contribute, but still encouraged dedicated play and mastery, with a variety of options that reward a more challenging experience for those who can handle it. I wonder if this means the 2 out the handle will become easier. I certainly hope so. Oh, I'm in. This is a good change up. It's just like throwing it all in a pot and mixing it all up together and let's see what comes out. I think it's going to just make things more interesting. It's going to be more for us to tackle and more for us to adjust and keep us on our toes, and don't knock it till you try it. Number 6, impact on content creation. Being able to use existing monster formulas without the need for additional and oftentimes lengthy one-off work makes it easier to stat monsters for dungeons, and that helps us spend more time polishing dungeons and do cooler and better things. Number 7, combat and statistical granularity. Well, there's a term for you. Statistical granularity. Everybody get ready for some statistical granularity, whatever that means. Combat and statistical granularity. One of the game's greatest strengths is the granularity of numbers in its content. But working with larger numbers is generally more challenging than working with smaller numbers. Is this funny to anyone else? We want to retrain as much granularity as we can while making gear set math easier. Math is hard. What's up, Kloosh? I'm sorry. But that was just funny to me, just the way it was worded. Smooth leveling. Number 8. Our long-term goals with DDO involve providing a smooth and exciting level experience across all levels and difficulties, not just from 1 to 20. This change allows us to provide a smoother leveling curve by removing the large jump in power at level 29. Future-proof design. One of the biggest benefits of this change is how future-proof it is. What does that even mean? We're getting into like buzz phrases that I have never even been, we've got granular statistics and future proofing. I don't even know what this is. I mean, I've been out of corporate America for so long, they were still talking about synergy and stuff like that when I was there. Granular statistics and future proofing. Future proofing means easier to change. Okay. When you're a man who knows nothing, these kind of buzz phrases just go right over your head. Okay, number 9. Number 9, future-proof design. One of the biggest benefits of this change is how... I can't help it. Is how future-proof it is. We will only need to do an endgame adjustment like this once, and then it's largely done, and we can continue onwards into the future. With a better endgame. Cool. I'm enthusiastic. I'm also entertained by the words that are used in numbers 8 and 9. All right.